Elena back for this week's episode of the Financial Planner Live podcast. And this week I'm joined by Hannah Whiteley, financial advisor, Joanne Fogo, wealth management. How are you this morning, Hannah?
I'm good. I'm really excited to be here. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you very much for taking the time to speak with me this morning. So it's the question that I like to start with everyone, but can you tell us a little bit about your career journey to date?
Oh, yeah. So I have been in financial services throughout my whole career, to be honest. So just I think it's coming up to about 11 years now. I actually started in debt management. So I've done, I suppose, the full circle at the cooperative bank. And then I moved into investment banking for a while, which I absolutely loved. I was made redundant from there about 2019, which was actually super positive because I got to go over to Poland, I got to transition the functions, and I did that by myself as well. So it actually turned out to be a really good thing. And I thought, what's next, essentially? I'd always thought about financial advice and that whole industry. But when you're in a corporation as big as investment, as the one I was with in investment banking, it's really hard. I suppose to move away from that, you feel very comfortable. But I thought now's the time. So I started to move into the financial advice world. So I always knew that I wanted to be a financial advisor, but I thought I need to learn the industry. It's completely new. So I started to take a little bit of a step back, started to apply for roles in terms of the more admin role, practice management roles. And for the past 2.5 years, I've been with Joanne and done all my exams, graduated from the Academy, and now's the point where I've been advising. So I've been qualified since February of this year. It's still really new to everything.
Yeah, and we were just talking about it before we sort of jumped onto the podcast, but, you know, Hannah's recently got her CAS status, so big congratulations.
Thank you. It feels like such a huge milestone.
Yeah, a massive milestone and something that lots of people work towards, so definitely something to be proud of. And you're still in the infancy of your career, but come across so knowledgeable. You know, it's excellent to have you on today. So we spoke about this previously, but can you tell us a little bit about how you broke into the industry and how you sort of navigated that side of things?
Yeah, of course. It was, to be honest, I found it really, really difficult. I thought it would be very easy because to me, I had all this experience within the investment world. I had all these transferable skills, but the recruiters that I spoke to didn't really care about that. They wanted experience. And now that I'm in the industry, I can completely understand why that's the case, especially if you're working in smaller practices. You know, they don't necessarily have the time or the resource, but to put together a really robust training schedule. So I do understand why you know, companies want the experience there. I get it. But I knew my potential and I knew what I had to offer. And it was just about being persistent. So I didn't hear anything back for about a month. I sent my CV for all of these job roles, didn't hear anything back. So I thought, okay, well, I'm going to ring every single recruiter in Manchester to see what's happening. Why am I not getting these responses back? Why am I not being moved forward? Because at that time I was actually a manager and I was applying for admin roles. So to me, in my mind, I was taking a little bit of a step back. And persistency is key, isn't it?
Yeah,
so I would ring all the recruiters, tell them all these transferable skills I had, why I think I'd be really great at the role. And luckily, in the end, you know, it took a couple of months, don't get me wrong, but in the end, I ended up actually getting 2 job opportunities, which was amazing. But it's definitely, it's tough. I found it very tough to get into the industry. And at the time when I was looking, I think it's changed now, to be honest, definitely the past 18 months, 2 years. Maybe it was like this when I was looking and I just didn't know where to look. But I feel like there's a lot more support. So your podcast is out, which is amazing. And I see so many groups on LinkedIn, which are really helping people to get into this industry, which is great. But at the time when I started, I didn't know where to look. I didn't know where to find these things. I didn't really know anyone that had come into the industry when they weren't already a financial advisor, if that makes sense. So yeah, it's definitely difficult. But persistency is key, and you just got to remember who you are at the end of the day and your abilities and your skills and keep pushing.
Yeah. One thing that's really exciting that I've got the green light to say now is that we're just in the process of creating like a financial planner life academies that will give the opportunities for people like yourself, second careerists or graduates, the facilities to sort of send their applications to firms that are looking for people that don't necessarily have experience. So we're trying to change the scope of things. But, you know, from a recruitment perspective, and working, you know, as that as my bread and butter, it is really difficult. And, you know, you speak to individuals like yourselves and, you know, they have such a big transferable skill set to bring and so much value to add to financial planning firms. But it is difficult because very often people need someone that can come in and hit the ground running due to like continued growth, or it's business critical because someone's left. So it's a very double-edged sword. But ultimately, if you have this mindset where you can't take a punt potentially on someone that isn't exactly what you're looking for, it means you miss out on really talented individuals like yourself that are ambitious, determined, and have got a lot to offer.
Absolutely. And I think when you're applying for them jobs as well, a part of it is letting go of that ego too, because at the time I was thinking, but I've got all this experience and you think you're taking a chance on me, but you're not, because I know what I can offer. But that's all operating out of ego. Sometimes you need to understand it from the other side. And if you get on employers level and just be honest and say, look, I don't have this experience and I know that can be frustrating, but let me show you what it can look like. Sometimes presenting the opportunity to employers themselves, I think really puts you in a good light too.
And when you started having conversations with firms like where you are now, did you find that the approach that you made allowed for like honest conversations about your ambitions to actually find something that was a really good fit?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a key point, to be really clear on where you want to go. So if you want to enter the industry as an administrator to see what the industry is like and perhaps progress in the future, be really honest with that. I went in knowing that I need to learn the industry, but my end goal is to be an advisor. This is not where I want to stay. So being honest with that at the beginning just makes that transition a lot smoother.
And you self-taught your exams to begin with, didn't you? So am I right saying that you went through an academy process, but you were almost slightly fast-tracked because you'd done your exams before?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started in November 2019 at Joanne's, and then COVID happened, didn't it, in 2020 around March. So everything stopped. So I thought, okay, well, what can I control? And I could only control the exam side of things, I suppose. I didn't know what was going to happen within the industry. So I just started with RO1, went all the way through to RO6, and just tried and just did it myself, really. And again, it's such a positive thing to do that. So I know I kept saying to Joanne at the time, I felt like I was missing a tribe. I felt like I was missing people who was going through the same experience of me, which was true. But it's such a great feeling to get to the end of them exams and think, you know what, I've done that by myself. It's such an amazing achievement to do. And then after that point, so we come under the umbrella of St. James's Place. And what St. James's Place is really good at is bringing up this new generation of advisors. So they've done so much work behind the scenes. You've got the original academy where you go without, if you don't have any experience or you've not done the exams. But they also created this new fast track academy, like you said. So I did 12 weeks of intensive training after I'd completed all of my exams to learn more the job side of things rather than the technical aspects of things, which was such a great time, to be honest. The actual training that they do and the way that it's all set out. I think we was only the second cohort.
Oh, wow.
Through this academy, and it was amazing. That's exactly where you do find tribes, exactly where you find people in the same situation with you. I was with such a great group of people as well. So yeah, both sides, however you come into this industry, even getting through them exams is such a huge achievement.
A massive achievement. And I think we speak to loads of people. I speak to loads of people on the podcast and from different environments, even my own father, who is an IFA, to people who aren't particularly academic or weren't particularly academic at school, that absolutely smash these exams out the park, and have people that have these mental barriers in their head saying, you know, these are 6 difficult, you know, big textbook finance-based exams, thinking that they're not going to be able to achieve that. That's going to be a limitation to them being a financial advisor. But, you know, it's such an achievement getting through whatever exam route you take, becoming qualified. But I speak to lots of people within the outside of the industry that are looking like yourself to like take that leap, become a financial advisor, and they start self-teaching themselves the exam. And I think for lots of people, before you begin, you have lots of limiting beliefs. You know, you're doing this all the way by yourself. It's going down the RO route like you did. It's 6 exams. You know, how did you navigate, you know, going through that exam process sort of by yourself?
So my method is consistency is key. And I say this to everybody. I think when you've gone through a period of being an adult where you've not needed to do exams, it's really hard to go back into that mindset, isn't it? What I did for every single exam, every day for 6 days a week, I do 30 minutes. That's it. Every single day, 30 minutes, possibly in the morning to get it out of the way, so to speak. But to do it that way, it becomes part of your routine, first of all. It doesn't feel so overwhelming because, you know, when that 30 minutes is done, you're done for the day. So you can still take pride in that you put the time in, but it doesn't feel like this huge, overwhelming chunk of time. And I understand that, you know, people sometimes cram, you know, do crazy amount of revision 2 weeks before the exam. I find doing it this way and being consistent with it, information actually goes into your brain a lot more. You make them pathways. So you remember, you don't pass the exam and then forget all of this information. You remember it because every day you've consistently gone back to the books. You've gone back to that information that you're learning, them tax rules, you know, the pension regulations. And that's what I would say to anyone. I'd say absolutely don't be scared of it. There's nothing, limiting beliefs are huge and it stops people from so many things in life. But I think just try. And the great thing about it as well is that, you know, 5 of the exams are multiple choice as well. So even if you do go into the exam and you have a mind blank, for example, you've got 4 answers there that, you know, over time you'll be able to figure something out, and you won't be sat there with a pen not knowing what to write. So that's always my method that I say to anyone who's doing exams. Consistency is take that half an hour every day and see what happens.
It's like forming a habit, isn't it? And we talk about it in the office about, you know, different things, saying that once you block that time in your diary to do a particular task, you have to, you know, do that task. Don't get pulled away from it. How did you stop yourself from being like, oh, I'm just going to go for a dog walk instead? Or, you know, it's a Saturday. Like, how did you keep that motivation and that drive to be like, look, this is my 30 minutes of learning? Because it's very easy to wake up one day and be like, I don't fancy it today. I'll do it tomorrow kind of thing.
So I would always give myself grace. So during the week, always non-negotiable. 30 minutes, that was what I needed to do. And when it becomes part of your routine, it becomes second nature, doesn't it? You don't even think about it. Just as the same way you look at emails every day, or you do your work every day, you complete your projects. That was one of the reasons why I could stay on track, because it was a non-negotiable. It was already built into my routine. At the weekends, I gave myself grace, absolutely. But that's why the 30 minutes is so important, because it's not 2 hours. You're not taking 2 hours out with your weekend. Give yourself that one day off, whether that be the Saturday or the Sunday, but get that 30 minutes out of the way in the morning. And for me, it was just that ease of knowing, okay, well, it's 30 minutes and then I'm done for the day. And I have that pride that I've still stuck to my goal. And it's thinking about that, isn't it? It's envisioning that person that you want to be in the future and where you want to be in the next year, 2 years, or whoever. It's to keep coming back to that when it feels like a slog and when it feels really difficult. Keep coming back to, well, why am I doing this in the first place? Why am I committing to it? And I think that's what helps to bring it all together.
And we spoke about this previously, but, you know, since you've finished your academy and you're now sort of fully fledged financial advisor in that sense, your career hasn't necessarily, or your journey so far hasn't necessarily been exactly how you envisioned it. Do you mind elaborating a little bit more on that for us?
Yeah. So I think I've worked so hard in terms of the exam, but it was very structured. I knew exactly what I needed to do to get to each point. So my first point was the first exam. I knew exactly what I needed to do in terms of revision, what the exam was going to look like. So I concentrated on that for 1.5 years. And then when I went through the academy process, that was very focused on, there were certain milestones that you needed to complete. So again, all very structured, all very laid out. And then I came out of the academy with this amazing, well, what I thought was an amazing business plan.
Yeah.
Had all these great ideas. And naively, I just didn't really think about what happens if these ideas don't work. And in reality, they didn't work. I wasn't ready for that. I just wasn't ready for it not to work. I thought, I've put all these good intentions and I put all this energy into this business plan. It will work. And it didn't. And that put me in quite a dark place, I'd say, for a good 2 to 3 months of just insecurity and having a low confidence in terms of, is this even for me? Why am I doing this? And I think the problem is sometimes is that we get so lost in these narratives that we tell ourselves in our own mind. We tell ourselves these stories constantly. And first of all, I always think when you're going through a hard time, you need to feel it. You need to own it. You need to let it essentially come through you and release it. If you mask it, or if you pretend that it's not happening, or you bury it away somewhere in the back of your mind, it will come up eventually in a different form. I think everyone's sort of aware of that. So feel it. So I had my 2-3 months where every day I was thinking, why am I doing this? I can't do this. I need to go back to a more structured environment. And again, the ego plays in, because this was the first time in my life where what I was doing wasn't working. So all throughout my career, I've been able to pinpoint how to get good at something. And I've been able to think about them goals and the milestones. In this job, it's not really worked like that, because I'm building a client bank from scratch. So it's not as simple as just focusing on these milestones, because sometimes, it just doesn't work. It's definitely been a topsy-turvy. But after them 2 to 3 months, I thought, okay, I've had enough time now. Let's remember who I am, why I'm starting this journey, what's the whole point of me doing it. And I think I said to you, it was let's just start small. If you think about the bigger picture, it overwhelms you massively.
Yeah.
So start small. So my first thing was, right, I'll do one thing every week that puts me out of my comfort zone. Now, I'm not necessarily, I don't want to stereotype the whole financial advisors here, but I find sometimes you can spot a financial advisor, the way they carry themselves, they're very chatty, they're centre of attention in the room. That's what they're good at. That's what they're there for. And I'm not necessarily that person. I would say I'm more of an extroverted introvert, if that makes sense. So to do these techniques in terms of going out and selling yourself, I've never had to do that. I've never really worked in sales. And to me, I'm not selling anything. I'm providing people with solutions. Just pushing myself out of my comfort zone could be something as small as ringing up my local coffee shop to see if I can do a client event. Because it was never the fear of them saying no I had. It was more the fear of, what are they going to think of me? So if I'm going out there trying to get these new clients and networking, my fear was, well, what happens if they think, I'm just coming across as a saleswoman? And what happens if people start avoiding me at weddings because all I do is talk about financial advice? That was controlling me, which meant, I wasn't actually achieving that much. But sometimes you just got to move out your own damn way, haven't you?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, what really matters here? And you have to give everything a go. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But what I have started seeing is the more that I continually push myself out of my comfort zone and just reach out to people, the more momentum I'm gaining. For the past 2 months, I've felt in a better mindset, I suppose, in a better mental headspace. And that's shown in the momentum that I'm seeing too. So it goes hand in hand.
One of my biggest mantras, and we said this previously, is the greatest growth comes from the most difficult times. And that's related to your professional life, to your personal life, all those times when you feel uncomfortable and you don't really want to do things. You feel so much more rewarded after, whether than 100% all the time, just staying in your own lane, staying what it brings no satisfaction. And I think for me as well, picking on what you were saying, when I feel a bit out of control or overwhelmed with work, I always tell myself I am where I am supposed to be. So even if I don't think I'm supposed to be here, in the grander scheme of things, in this moment in time, this is where I'm supposed to be and I have to work through it. And so do you think your mindset and the narrative that you have in your head has affected a lot how you are as a financial planner?
Absolutely. Because this is a relationship business, right? People need to trust you. People need to like you. People need to believe in you. So if you're in a situation where, you're a bit of a negative Nelly, you're walking in there, you're not that positive, you're feeling a bit down, people pick up on energy. And as much as woo-woo that sounds, and, energy is a buzzword now, isn't it? I agree. But what I would say to them people is, think about them times you've walked into a room and instantly known there's an atmosphere. Why is that the case? No one can describe it. No one can put the finger on it. It's because of energy. So if you're going into a client meeting and you're not in the best mindset, or perhaps you're not being your true self and you're masking something, people will feel that. People will feel like you're not being your true self, or that something's off. Have you met someone where you think, something's not right here, I can't put my finger on what it is, but I don't feel that I'm really meeting them? And I've been in that situation many times. And I think in a client meeting, people can feel that. And the difference is, you want the end goal, for me personally anyway, is in any meeting to leave with my clients feeling more empowered, feeling more confident about money. Now, I need to be the catalyst behind that. I need to be pushing that message. And people say negativity breeds negativity, but positivity also breeds positivity as well. So if I'm going in there in the right headspace myself, and I've got the good energy to give over to my clients, it's so much more likely that they're going to get on board and feel really enthusiastic about the future and want to put all these plans in place. And that's why I think it's super important. You need to be the catalyst. You need to be the driving force a lot of the time to help your clients feel empowered, to feel confident, to feel really happy about the future and where things are going. So yeah, super important.
Yeah, I think it's really important. And what you're saying about energies and high vibrational frequencies and stuff like that is something that I really believe in. And as you said, people might listen to this and be like, I'm not too sure what that is, or if I believe in that. But like you said, if you walk into a room and there's a bad feeling and there's an atmosphere, straight away. And that's what I mean about negative vibrations. So how do you think there's self-development practices that you use in your personal life, which then translate into your professional life?
Absolutely. I think self-development is everything. When you're growing and when you're giving back, it makes you feel more alive. It makes you want to get up in the morning. It makes you feel excited for the future. It makes you feel really happy to say, okay, how's this day going to unfold? Personal development really is everything. And apart from that, being a financial advisor where the job consistently is meeting new people or meeting your clients, you need to learn how to change your state. For example, you could have had a terrible morning, the train's late, you spilled coffee on yourself. We've all had them types of mornings. But you might have a client meeting at 10 a.m. You need to change your state from that frustration, annoyed version of yourself to a more happy, positive, calm, joyful person. Now, that doesn't happen overnight. That takes work. And that's where self-development comes in. So listen to the podcasts, read the books, watch the videos, truly understand what triggers you and why you behave the way that you behave. And I think that's when all the change starts to happen.
And we've spoken about this, but like in terms of self-development practices, personally, there might be people out there that are listening that they're like, I am actually a bit of a negative Nelly, and I feel like I could start working on myself and this might make me a better person professionally and personally.
Yeah.
But, what little practices are really important to you in your day-to-day?
So every day I have a morning meeting with myself. I think we're so willing to give time to everybody else. So we'll happily have a meeting with our manager. I mean, you should, they're probably paying your wage, but you'll happily have a meeting with your colleagues. You'll make time in the weekends for your friends and family. But how many times do you actually make that time for yourself? So to me, every morning meeting, before I start the day, I'll do meditation and I'll do gratitude as well, just to set yourself up. It sets me up on the right track. Now, I used to be, and I still am, my natural state is negative. I go through life being my own risk manager, thinking about all the bad things that can happen. And it's taken years for me to try and switch that around. And it's my meditation and it's my gratitude that really helps me do that, because our minds aren't supposed to be constantly revolving around. We've still got the brain of our ancestors, haven't we? Our brain hasn't changed. So we're not meant to be constantly surrounded by all this news, all this information, our social media apps, our phone, our emails. We're not meant to be around that. So to take that time out every day just to be in silence and just to concentrate on yourself, I think is so powerful. And for anyone who perhaps thinks they can't do meditation or gratitude or anything like that, but don't perhaps believe in it, what I would say is try it. Do it for 2 weeks and notice the difference between the days that you don't do it and the days that you do. Days that I don't do it, I'm more irritable, I'm more annoyed, I'm more negative, and I can just feel that something's out of balance. Taking that time to set the day up every day, meditation, gratitude, and I also do movement as well. So I move my body in some sort of way every day. And it's not, you don't need to see it as a chore. It's something in terms of giving back kindness to yourself, I suppose. And to me, that's where the change happened. I'm a much better person now because of the fact that I do this every day than I used to be, say, when I was in my early 20s.
Yeah, me and Hannah, we spoke about this briefly. We're very similar in our attitude with this. I wake up every morning, they're same. I meditate. I write my journal, and that includes an element of gratitude. And then I do some sort of form of yoga. And you can talk about it. The people in our office, as I said to you before, if I come in and I've overslept for one reason or another, and I haven't had the chance to do it, I am so much more grumpy. I'm just not aligned and focused and ready for the day ahead. And I think if there's people out there listening to this that think, I'd love to do that, but I don't have the time, all you need is a 5 minutes of yoga, a 5-minute meditation, and 3 minutes noting down. It's less than a 15-minute thing that you can add to your morning routine. And I think people will be listening to this and say, but how does that change your professional life, for example? But for me, if I'm having a stressful day in the office and everything's bugging me and my candidates can sometimes be a bit frustrating, or my clients are being frustrating, or one thing or another, I sit there and I focus, and I'm there like, I have a job. Loads of people out there would love to just be employed. I have a job which keeps me financially secure. I have a job, surrounded by loads of people that I really enjoy working with. I have a job where I get to add value to others. And all of a sudden I'm there like, I, can take that breath, and I can be there like, that frustration just diminishes. And I'm there like, all of this is, suffering, and that frustration, you can't change that, but you can change that muscle in your brain and the way that you speak and the way that voice speaks to be like, right, this is all a bit annoying right now, but I'm actually grateful that I'm here and I get to live all this annoying stuff, because there's loads of people out there that aren't fortunate enough to have what we have.
Of course. And you get back what you put out into the world as well. So in terms of thinking, how does it affect my professional life? Well, if you're working consistently on being the best version of you, then that's going to impact all of your life, your relationships, your health, your professional life, your personal life. If you're putting, I know we keep talking about energy, but if you're putting these good intentions out there in the world, I truly believe that that's when things will start to change and start to work for you.
I completely agree. Law of attraction, what you put out will come back. And it's the flip side. If you're all the people that I see that moaning about things that are wrong in their life are putting that negative energy out there. And unfortunately, it works twofold. And we've spoken then a lot about mindset and how, doing these practices and mindset is key to you as a financial planner. But we've spoken a lot about previously as well about our mindset towards our finances. So do you mind elaborating a little bit on that and sort of the narrative we can have about our mindset and our finances?
Of course. So I think every good financial plan starts with small habits. And I think that's what people miss a lot of the time. So for example, saving. Getting into the habit of saving is exactly like building a muscle. It's exactly like going to the gym and working on your arms or whatever. So you need to consistently do that. And I hear people all the time that talk about, well, when I'm earning this much, I'll start to save, or when I'm in this position, I'll start to save. And I always think, but how likely is that? Because if you're not saving now, and you're not making that connection now, who's to say you'll make connection at your peak? And even if you do, say you reach that goal of when you'll start to save, well, how do you know whether you're saving enough? Because you don't have a reference point. So even at this point, if you're only saving £2 a week, consistently building that muscle in your mind of the fact that this is just something that I do. And then if your situation starts to improve, then that saving situation will start to improve as well. And I think people sometimes don't connect the two. I hear it so, and I'm so guilty of this. I say to my friends, oh, you deserve that. So for example, they'll come to me and handle the storage dress, £90, shall I buy it? And I go, absolutely, you deserve it. You worked hard. That's amazing. And I think I've really had to look in the mirror, to be honest, because I say this all the time.
Yeah,
my friends can constantly. And I think, but do they deserve that? That's going to bring, a day maximum of happiness, so-called happiness, or do they deserve the joy and the contentment that they would receive from having some sort of financial security where they're not worrying? Because finance is part of overall well-being, whether we want to recognise that or not, it really is. It's really about getting into that mindset now, no matter what your situation, no matter what you can afford to save, no matter what your budget looks like in terms of your income and expenditure. Times are hard now, but make that connection now, because that's going to do you it's going to add so much value later.
Mm-hmm. Molly in the office, if she listens to this, will be screaming saying, do not go shopping with Elena on a Friday, because she will tell you you've worked really hard this week and you should buy everything that you want.
I'm the same. Honestly, I'm exactly the same. I love Zara. Put me in that Zara sale and it's like the best day ever. But it's coming back to, but what do I truly want here? It's constantly coming back to that, because we're in a world of materialistic things. We're constantly surrounded by them, aren't we?
Mm-hmm.
And it's zoning in on, let's just get clear with how I want my life to look. And then how does everything fit into that?
Mm-hmm. But one thing that's really important to you is that even though we have to change our mindset and our narrative about things, it's not about deprivation, is it? You don't need to mean that you can never shop at Zara again, or, if you've got a big event coming up, you can't buy a nice dress, if you really want one.
Exactly. We're aiming for a life of discipline, not deprivation. I feel like I say that on repeat a lot of the time, because I am not the sort of financial advisor that will come in and tell you how to spend your money. I'm not a dictator. That's not my role. My role is to really help you get to the goals that you want to achieve. And I think that you still need to live life. This needs to still feel enjoyable, even though you're working towards something. If it feels hard and difficult and tough, why would you continue to commit to it?
Yeah.
So it still needs to feel enjoyable. And listen, I'm the same. No one's taking Zara away from me. No one's taking holidays away from me. They're my two vices. Well, three. Zara, holidays and handbags. They're my three vices. If someone told me to stop them, I'd be like, absolutely not. Stop telling me what to do. Because I'm quite strong-willed in that sort of sense. I know sometimes that money could be spent to better use, but it's still something that I enjoy. But it's just that little bit of discipline. Having that tiny bit of discipline can honestly make all the difference.
Yeah. And I think that's one misconception about money or financial planning that we need to change, is that, it means that then you can't have all the nice luxuries that you want. It's, as you said, it's discipline, not deprivation. Yeah. Do you think there's any other money misconceptions that we need to change?
There's so many, to be honest, in terms of just financial advice in general, and people thinking you need to have a certain amount of money in order to go to a financial advisor. Again, that's just not the case. I truly believe everyone should have access to financial advice, whether they're in a position to necessarily put in a plan or not. As I think you see on my Instagram all the time, knowledge is power. So just having that conversation and feeling more confident about, okay, so I might not be there yet, but where am I headed? If you know where you're heading, it's so much easier to get there. There's just so many misconceptions, I think, around finance. There's a lot of negativity that surrounds it. When in actual fact, money can be such a positive thing. It can bring so much choice. It can bring so much freedom to your life. So I think there's a lot of work to be done in that space, to be honest.
Definitely. Definitely. And one thing we spoke about previously as well is that you have also faced misconceptions yourself due to, different, your gender you mentioned, your age. Do you mind elaborating on that a little bit more for us?
Yeah, so I've thought a lot about this, to be honest. So starting with gender first, I see so much inequality and I see so many situations that women face in the professional working environment that men don't necessarily face.
Mm-hmm.
And that, to me, is quite infuriating, and I still think we've got a lot to do. I feel very strongly about that side of things and always constantly striving for improvements. And, I think we've made massive improvements within the financial services if we just concentrate on that for now, as it is. But there's still a lot of work to be done. But I've never really felt that personally in my career. I've worked in financial services for the past 11 years. And financial services is stereotypically dominated by men. And it is. I've found that. I've not really had a lot of women managers. I've not really had a lot of women to necessarily aspire to whilst I've been moving along my career. What I would say is I don't let that personally affect me. Mm-hmm. I have never, ever thought in my mind, I've never seen a job, for example, in my mind that I think a man would be better at that than me, ever. I can do a job as good as any man.
Of course we can.
And I also think that my more feminine qualities, let's say, so qualities that people normally associate with femininity, such as compassion, such as empathy. I've been told quite regularly that I'm too sensitive. And it really used to bother me. I need to think, right, I need to get thick skin, I need to get harder. Yeah. And I thought, absolutely not. That's actually my superpower. The fact that I'm sensitive makes me more empathetic, makes me more sensitive to other people's needs, which in turn makes me a hell of a lot better at this job than I would be if I wasn't thinking about that, if I wasn't trying to understand people on a deeper level. So that's the gender thing. And I think insecurities come from both sides on the age. I think that older people can sometimes feel, I don't necessarily know, intimidate is not the right word, but I suppose we live in a community where aging is never classed as a good thing a lot of the time. Yeah. It's constantly bombarded with, and especially women as well, anti-aging creams, let's get Botox to get rid of the wrinkles, you don't want to look old, you don't want that saggy skin. And I think sometimes that can create insecurity from perhaps older people working with younger colleagues, and the flip reverse, younger colleagues working with older colleagues realising creating an insecurity of, well, they might know more than me and they have had more life experience than me, mm-hmm. which I think creates them unnecessary comments sometimes. But I think, do you know what? Whatever anyone has to say, if they don't know you or they're just judging you off your age, for example, I think that says a lot more about them than it does you. It's not really a problem. And I think the only thing you can control, you can't control people's ideas, their thoughts, how they perceive you. You can only control how you react to it, essentially. Yeah. Thinking about all of this, taking all this aside, I'm so much more than being a female and being 29. Yeah. I'm so much more than that. So to me, it's just thinking, that's insignificant. I can't change how people view me. I can only think about my reaction to it and also concentrate on the bigger things going on. It's just external. Mm-hmm. In reality, it doesn't really matter.
Again, it all boils down to mindset, doesn't it? You can't control what people say or what people think. But if you have, that mindset that we've discussed of knowing what you are as an individual and what makes you special, people can say whatever they want if that's what they want to say, because you have that ingrained in you. That a lot of those times that people, use as misconception, as you said, may that be your age, your gender, your background. There's so many different facets of this. They're the things that make you you. And a lot of the time that's your superpower and the things that make you special and unique. So I completely agree. If someone's got something negative to say, it's more of a projection of them and their insecurities. And I've changed my mindset now that when people are like that, instead of taking it, on board and myself getting hurt, I feel sorry for that person, that they A, feel that way, and then B, feel for whatever reason or another they have the right to say that. I feel more sad of what's going on in that inside that person, that they feel like they have to project that to other people. And I think we've spoken a lot about mindset. And, you know, one thing that I really like about you, Hannah, is you're definitely not that sort of ram it down your throat, sales, transactional financial advisor. But to round up the podcast, what then do you define as success?
I love this question. And I speak to Joanna about this all the time, because it's so easy to focus purely on the numbers. So in my role, it's initially advice fees and clients, but this could be anything in life. This could be the amount of likes you're getting on social media, the amount of houses you have, the amount of cars you have, the amount of holidays you've been on, how much is your house. We can get so obsessed with focusing purely on the numbers. And to me, I think, okay, that's fine. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, because they can be really useful in terms of setting goals. But when them numbers start to drop and you've wrapped your whole identity in that, what are you left with? And I think that's where I was, the point I was getting to a couple of months ago, because I didn't see them numbers increasing. That then really affected how I felt about myself. So to me, success is, what are you offering to the world? Are you making the world better? What is the impact that you're having on people? How are you making them feel? Because if you ignore that side of things, and especially if I ignored that months ago, then I would have deemed myself a humongous failure.
Yeah.
But in reality, you've actually helped so many people, whether that's led to a number on a spreadsheet or not. And, you know, there might be a financial advisor that's made, say, £1 million a year. But if they're not a nice person and they don't treat people in the correct way, you better believe that I'm not putting them on a pedestal as my inspiration. Because success doesn't mean success in a monetary term doesn't mean that you stop being kind, doesn't mean that you stop being considerate. I think you should always lead with kindness. So to me, it's think less about the numbers and think more about what impact you're actually having, and focus on doing the right things. And I truly believe if you focus on doing the right things and focus on being the best version of yourself and offering the best version of yourself to other people, the rest will come. The rest will happen. And it's just trusting that and having faith in that, and not getting too concerned with all these numbers flying around.
Yeah, and I think that's a lovely way to round off the podcast today. Trust the process. I think that's one thing that we all get so bogged down about. And as I said earlier on, you are where you are supposed to be. So keep doing the right things for yourself, for everyone around you. And, you know, it will come back to you in tenfold. So thank you so much for spending your time with me this morning, Hannah. It's been absolutely amazing to speak with you. I think this is an excellent episode. You know, focus on sort of mindset, how that can affect your personal and professional life, and how our behaviours change around money and things like that as well. So, yeah, it's been excellent to have you this morning.
Thank you so much.